Good morning. It's Monday, March 16th. Welcome to Title Talk. I'm Karen Hamstra, and I have 10 fiction books to show you this morning, and hope that maybe one of them will, one or more, feel free. If you love all 10, get your name on the list for them. I hope one or more will spark an interest in you. The first one is called Murder in an Irish Cottage by Carleen O'Connor. Apparently there are a whole series of these Irish village mysteries, and this one revolves around a young woman named Siobhan, and she has a fiance named MacDara Flannery. And in this village there's a cottage, and a woman is murdered there. I bet you would have never guessed that from the title. Anyway, everybody in the village believes devoutly in Irish folklore, and the villagers insist that this cottage is cursed. It's built on a fairy path. It turns out that Ellen Delaney, who was the victim, was not the first to die mysteriously inside the cottage. And so, although the townfolk blame malevolent, mysterious fairies, Siobhan and MacDara must follow the path of a murderer, all too human, but just as evil as those nasty fairies. So if you like Irish things, all things Irish, we have St. Patrick's Day coming up tomorrow, so this is a very appropriate book for you to lay your hands on. And then Tamsin Kelly has a new book called Daisy Cooper's Rules for Living. Poor Daisy, she's just getting her life started when it suddenly ends. She's stunned to find herself in an afterlife processing center, and she's even more stunned to find out that she wasn't meant to die for another 55 years. A terrible, embarrassing clerical mistake is behind it, and an administrator named Death is to blame. But death, as they say, is final, and Daisy must now navigate this impossible new world. So she finds an unlikely ally, and she begins to realize that letting go isn't just a challenge faced by those left behind. And as she learns how to survive this strange reality, friendship, hope, and love begin to come alive in the most unexpected ways. This is a fantasy novel, but it really, even though it's fantasy, it sounds like a lot of fun. So maybe you'd like to try Tamsin Kelly's Daisy Cooper's Rules for Living. It did get excellent reviews in the library review journals. Tracy Cooper has a new one. We actually have 2 copies of this plus large print copied. So that's 3 total. So you can definitely get your hands on it. Secrets of My Heart. This is about a young woman named Nancy Pritchard who finds herself widowed. And she's got a world of problems because her departed husband was apparently involved in a number of shady business schemes, and those come to light after he died, and so now she has to straighten it out. But fortunately, a childhood friend named Seth Carpenter turns up. This apparently takes place in Portland, Oregon. It definitely takes place there in 1879, and Seth has become a lawyer, and he helps her straighten things out. And I would be willing to bet that some sort of romance probably develops between those two. Anyway, if you want a nice, clean romance, Tracy Peterson's Secrets of My Heart would be a fine place to start. Precious You by Helen Monks Takhar. That's Takhar. This is about a young woman named Lily who's hired as a new intern at a magazine where Catherine is editor-in-chief. And Lily's arrival seems to threaten and shake the very foundations of the publishing world, a self-serving publishing world that Catherine has built. Catherine starts using things that Lily has done against her, and then Lily starts slowly sabotaging Catherine's work. And anyway, as Catherine fights back, a toxic generational divide turns explosive, and long-buried secrets are exposed with deadly consequences. This is a suspense novel. Oh, if you're into suspense, Precious You by Helen Monks Takhar. Are you a fan of all things Kennedy? If so, there's a new Kennedy novel called, and they called it Camelot. This is by Stephanie Marie Thornton. It is a historical fiction novel. It focuses on Jackie Kennedy. It says, few of us can claim to be the authors of our fate. Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy knows no other choice. With the eyes of the world watching, Jackie uses her effortless charm and keen intelligence to carve a place for herself among the men of history and weave a fairy tale for the American people, embodying a senator's wife, a devoted mother, a first lady, a queen in her own sight. But all reigns must come to an end, and after Dallas, Jackie is forced to pick up the pieces of her life and forge a new identity that is all her own, that of an American legend. So that sounds like it might be interesting. Anita Abriel has written a book called The Light After the War. This focuses on two friends. I think they probably started out in Budapest because this is a World War II and post-warriors novel, and it says it spans the globe from Budapest to Austria, Naples, and to Caracas. And in 1946, Vera Frankel and her best friend Edith arrive in Naples as refugees from Hungary. They had managed to jump out of a train that carried their mothers to Auschwitz, and they spent the rest of the war hiding on an Austrian farm. And now they're determined to start their new lives abroad. One of them falls in love with a captain at the American embassy where she has found work, but he suddenly disappears. And as they grapple with the after effects of war, they decide to go to Caracas, and they start new careers there and reunite with loved ones, rebuilding their lives after unimaginable losses. So again, if you like historical World War II fiction, try out Anita Abriel's The Light After the War. Beverly Jenkins, who is a very prolific author, has written a new book called On the Corner of Hope and Main. And of course, the corner of Hope and Main is located in the small village of Henry Adams. This book revolves around a mayoral race. Trent July has been the mayor for the past 4 years, and he decides he doesn't want to be mayor anymore. And Barrett Payne, a former Marine, decides he wants the job. But then there's a surprise candidate who jumps into the mix, and all the residents of Henry Adams have learned that life will throw innumerable obstacles in their way, but as always, they come together as a community and rise above the challenges. Beverly Jenkins always writes a good novel. Allison Pataki, The Queen's Fortune. Just a side note, we have applied to have Allison Pataki do a remote session with our book discussion group. We haven't heard anything yet as to whether we're successful, but if you'd like to get a jump on things, just in case we are, you might want to try out the new one here. This says it's a riveting novel about the extraordinary woman who captured Napoleon's heart, created a dynasty, and changed the course of history. As the French Revolution rages in her country, Desiree Clary faces the life-altering truth that the world she has known and loved is gone, and it's fallen on her to save her family from the guillotine. And she has a chance encounter with Napoleon Bonaparte. And at that time, he's an ambitious and charismatic young military protege, and he provides the answer for her, and things proceed from there. So, The Queen's Fortune, Allison Pataki. And then Laura Childs has a new one in her Tea Room series. These are just really fun. They take place in Charleston, South Carolina, where, let's see, Theodosia, I have problems remembering her first name sometimes. Theodosia Browning runs a tea room, and Drayton Connolly is her assistant. He actually makes some of the tea and oversees the brewing, so I guess he's a tea master, although I believe there's a more correct technical term than that. Anyway, in this one, there's an authentic English bird shoot being held, and Theodosia and Drayton are both invited. Theodosia stumbles over the host's body in a nearby lavender field, and his wife is beside herself with grief, the host's wife, Meredith, and she begs Theodosia and Drayton to spend the night with her, and they awaken to a fire in the house. And of course, as always happens in these novels, Theodosia has to go off and investigate, and she becomes worried herself when she thinks she's invited the prime suspect to her Lavender Lady tea. She's always hosting these themed teas at her tea shop, and I'm sure she'll end up in a life-threatening situation, but most likely she will come through it, as she always seems to. And so these are just really fun, cozy mysteries. And last but not least, Deanna Rayburn has a new Veronica Speedwell mystery. I just love these books. They're great fun. They are set in London, and this one is in autumn of 1888. And Veronica always thought she was an orphan, but she was mistaken. And she takes up with this man named Stoker, who has a bit of a shady past, and they investigate crimes. They have kind of a patron named Lady Wellingtonia Beauclerc, and this time she has asked them to stop a potential scandal so explosive that it threatens to rock the monarchy. That would be Queen Victoria's monarchy, because Queen Victoria's son, Prince Albert Victor, is a regular visit to one of the most exclusive private clubs in London, and the proprietress, Madame Aurore, has received an expensive gift that can be traced back to the prince. And so Lady Welly would like Veronica and Stoker to retrieve it from the club before scandal can break. They just always have so many close, narrow escapes, just barely making it through with their lives. And these are just, there's a whole series of these. They're a hoot. So give them a try. Deanna Rayburn, Murderous Relation. So I hope that gives you some new ideas for new authors, new books. Take care of yourselves, wash your hands frequently, and I hope I'll see you next week.